Welcome back, Fantasy Fiction Fanatics. It's great to see you again, and I hope you're doing well. Today's class is going to be on the very last chapters of Queen of Sorcery. We're finishing up chapters 26 till the end. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the rest of book 2 and are ready to get into book 3. So I have a couple things I want to talk about for these last couple chapters, and then we will go ahead and do our comparison and our expectations for the next book and try and go ahead and transition and jump into that. So we'll be ready for starting book 3. Before we get into that, let's go ahead and go over the trivia question. This last week's trivia question's answer was iron. And I had 4 correct participants this week. We had Paul, Brendan, Christian, and Jaws. So congratulations to everybody who got it correct. Thank you so much for everybody who participated. As always, if you would also like to participate in the weekly trivia question, you can go ahead over to the blog, fantasyfictionfanatics.net, and on the right hand side, if you scroll down just a little bit, it'll be on there for desktop. If you're on mobile, you can scroll pretty much almost all the way down to the bottom, and it will be down there for you. So every week on Saturday is when it changes, so between Sunday or Saturday afternoon all the way to this next Saturday morning is when the trivia question will be available, and then I will go ahead and post the correct answer or announce it on the next episode or next class. So you're welcome to go ahead and join us. Hopefully you will want to play and see if you can answer the trivia questions yourself. Alright, let's go ahead and get started with our recap as always. So, we actually had a little bit going on this time. Obviously something had to happen, but we do have quite a few significant things that kind of happened and going on with these set of chapters. The group finally gets word from Belgariad and Silk that they are running late, but they are on their way and they will be there shortly. And Garon ends up getting kidnapped from the boat and taken to Salmrissa. And in Salmrissa's care, I guess you could say, they go ahead and drug him so he is willing to tell the truth about who he is and who his companions are. They realize that they have the correct person that they were hoping to have kidnapped and take him to Salmrissa, who decides that he is going to be her new consort. And she gets rid of the old one very drastically. And this drugs that they've given him also make him compliant, and she believes that she is going to be able to control him and keep him compliant as her consort. However, Moss has his own hesitancies about it. He thinks that he is not someone who is so easily controlled, and Salmrissa is hoping to either keep him or to deliver him to Torek and become his wife to have immortality. So Moss ends up realizing that the voice in Garon's head, though he thinks it is just Garon, is awake and that he isn't completely under control, so he goes towards him to get the amulet in the hopes that that is going to make it so he's completely consumed by the drugs, and he ends up being killed by touching the amulet, probably from the voice is what it makes it seem like, is that voice is the one that sends the power through the amulet and kills Moss. Pol then shows up with Barak, who is in the shape of a bear. He is full on bear at this point, killing all the guards as she storms through, and ends up trying to get Garon back from Salmrissa. So Salmrissa awakens Issa, the god Issa, in the hopes that he would help her, but ends up that he decides not to do anything about it, goes back to sleep, and just tells Pol to do anything she wants to her as long as she doesn't kill her. So Pol decides to turn her into a snake, one that will be immortal based on the drugs that Salmrissa takes for her youth, and will forever be the queen in Nicaea. And they leave with Garon, and Belgariad and Silk finally show up shortly after that, and is telling Pol that they must go to the Vale because their master calls for them. So there we have it. That's where we end up, is Belgariad saying that their master, which I'm assuming is going to be Aldur, since who else would that be, is calling them to the Vale, wherever the Vale is. So they apparently are going to not be following the orb anymore and are going to be going to the Vale instead. And that's where we're at. So let's go ahead and talk about Salmrissa first and foremost for this set of chapters. Obviously, we had a lot of build-up throughout this whole entire book, really, to understanding and having some kind of expectation of Salmrissa and expecting to probably see her, because we've had so many attacks by her so many times that she has tried to get Garon, and you know, obviously now they're in Nicaea, so it seemed likely that they were going to have to visit her at some point. So we've kind of really been building up to these last moments where we meet her and have her intentions truly shown to us as the reader. So she drugs Garon, and it is a drug that is a poison if you don't continually consume it. So she was already going to be risking Garon's life, essentially, thinking that it was going to be a guarantee in order to control him and to keep him, but drugs him in order to be able to have him in her custody. Then, on top of that, because she's given him this drug, she's very cocky and thinks that she can completely keep him under control. Even though she does call him by Belgariad and does understand what that means, at least we're assuming she understands what that means in the fact that she knows his true name, that she thinks that even though he is a magic user, that he is part of this quest, in many ways she might understand who he truly is, knows enough that Torok wants him, and that he is somebody very important in this battle. So, but she thinks that she can control him anyway. So obviously she's very cocky. She thinks mighty high of herself, which is not surprising with even her other things that she has done and said. But Mas is the only one really trying to be like, you don't really totally understand what you're doing, do you? And ends up getting himself killed by it. But she's completely 100%, I understand what I'm doing. He's going to be in control. It's going to be easy peasy piece of cake, because I've given him these drugs. So very, very cocky. It's very self-absorbed as well. I mean, looking in the mirror, wanting to be beautiful and feeling like she deserves immortality, and that's what she is searching for. That's why she wants Garon in the first place, is that way she can go ahead and convince Torok to give her immortality. And Pol says that she takes these certain potions or drugs that help her remain looking youthful. So she's all about herself. She even asks Garon how old he thinks she is, and is not very happy with his answer. She is very much vain, self-absorbed, all about herself. Very little empathy. We see that she has very little empathy in the fact that she just is willing to throw away the man that she had before in order to replace him with Garon, because he was making a stink about being dismissed as her consort. And again, she wants that eternal life, which shows that she is very single track minded, very much wanting to live forever, and the same kind of flaws that many characters have when they want eternal life and are searching for something that is beyond the means of normal human society and normal human lifespans. I feel like in many ways she does capture a lot of qualities that have from a lot of different stories that include people who want eternal life. They're very much self-absorbed, very much out for themselves, especially as she's a queen. She is power enriched. You know, she usually can get what she wants. She can just say, hey, I want this, and she'll get it. It's very much part of the character that has also been building since we've seen her. We do understand that she is someone who doesn't take no for an answer, as she continually tries to make up these plans to get Garon. And then we finally have this interesting turn of events when Polgara turns up. She turns her into a snake, into a giant snake that will officially live forever and will be the queen forever. Now snakes I'm not usually somebody who's like into symbolism and things like that. I feel like, everything doesn't have to be a symbol for everything else. But I do feel like in some cases, symbolism is important and is intentional, and you can get more from a story with the symbolism that it is. And I feel like this is one of those cases that I do feel like the symbolism of what a snake is really impacts the moment of Polgara turning her into a snake. She has a lot of quote quote snake-like qualities. She's very thinks highly of herself, and so in many ways also turning into a snake, the snakes that she has around her, and becoming one of them, being, a cold-blooded animal, reptile, and one that is, has killer instincts, can poison people very easily. Kind of seems like a fitting end for her, at least in my opinion. The snake is always supposed to be known as like oftentimes cunning, very much trying to lead people astray, and she obviously is somebody who is very cunning, very self-absorbed, wanting to lead people to doing what she wants. So it has a lot of the same qualities and very snake-like qualities that kind of is representative in the fact that she is then turned into the snake, and that she lives in a world, or not a world, but a country or an area that is very that snakes are deities and in many ways, and are a big part of their culture and everything like that. So there's a lot of that symbolism around her, and then she actually becomes one, whether she wants to or not. And it doesn't seem, by the fact that she doesn't say anything, I don't believe she's like one of those that Polgara made it so she could still talk and like stuff like that. She doesn't say anything, so I'm assuming she's not necessarily like Moss, who can talk and interact, but we don't know for sure since she doesn't say anything. We can't really say for sure if she is still going to even be able to communicate with the people around her. And according to Polgara, she's going to not mind after a while being a snake, but it definitely was not what she intended when she stole Garon, that is for sure. That was not the way that she wanted her immortal life to come to her at that time. So yeah, snakes are just very negative in a lot of ways. I mean, there also are good positive things. I mean, the snake can also be representative of like healing and health. So they do have mixed symbolism depending on different cultures and so yeah, but I believe in this particular case we are embodying that the snakes negative connotations, and other stories that show snakes as being very cold, collected, smart people who trick others and manipulate others, because that is basically what she was doing in her human form, and now she has become the snake. So, yep, a lot of selfishness, deceit, manipulation, poison, drugs, corruption, all of that is Nicaea was shown in Salmrissa, and now she will forever be their queen. I also wonder if that is a fitting fate for the country itself, to have a queen that is a giant snake that will live forever. But it's tough to say. We didn't spend that long in Nicaea in order to know exactly how many people are good people or good people in that area. We don't really know if there was any. All we know is that there's a lot of corruption, manipulation, drug abuse, and that it's very hot and not a fun place to live. So we do understand that there is a lot of that nature in the whole of the civilization there. So I think it would be interesting if we got to see Nicaea again after a while of having her change, and to see if it affects anything or if it doesn't. It's tough to say exactly what this will lead for their culture, their nation. I really love to know what you think about all of that, with what happens with Salmrissa and her being a snake and all that. I would really find it interesting to know what your thoughts and opinions are that down below. Let's go ahead and move on to the voice. Garon's voice that has been there since book 1, chapter 1, all the way from the very, very beginning, from when he was a little kid, there's always been that voice. And that voice becomes much more prominent in this set of chapters. It becomes very, very clear that this voice is not Garon. At the beginning, at least in my opinion, I always thought at the very beginning that there's lots of hints and signs that this could possibly be a part of Garon, like a mature voice that, you know, he was born with, like this, I don't want to say alter personality, but more like maybe a descendant part of him is like passed down to him, and that's that voice, is that there's a mature process, a mature version of himself already manifested in himself, if that makes any sense. Like maybe an ancestor that's talking down through him. I don't want to say reincarnation, because he's not a reincarnation of anybody, he's just a descendant, but just kind of a past person, you know, kind of being inside him, or that there's a part of him that is already matured adult, you know, portion of his brain that then interacts with him when it's necessary, you know, something like that. I mean, obviously this is a world that has magic in it, so I figured that was something that could happen. And the way that the voice interacted always seemed kind of like it could have been a part of him, that it could have come from himself, that's just activated when he's in stressful situations and needs the advice. But now it's become very, very clear that they are two separate beings, and that the voice has a mind of its own, and Garon is just a facility for the voice to interact with him. So, or his mind is the facility that the voice uses to interact with him and to guide him. That makes more clear sense, doesn't it? Let me know if I'm confusing you down below as well. I will be more clear if so. So we have yet to discover who this voice belongs to. We still don't know exactly what this voice is, though we do seem to be getting more hints and more tells and more signs of who it could possibly belong to. If you do have a guess, I would love to hear. But anyway, it is clear now that this voice, wherever it's coming from or whoever it belongs to, knows Pol and knows Belgariad, and both of them recognize the voice. They're very surprised by the existence of the voice, and the voice even tells Polgara, "Oh, I've always been here, been here this whole time, and you just haven't known until now." But they both recognize and know the voice, though this is not totally surprising in the fact that Polgara and Belgariad seem to know everybody and everything. But definitely they recognize the voice, and they know who the voice belongs to. And then we have, you know, even more steps from the voice stepping in to offer help. So now it's not just, you know, giving this advice or helping Garon in a situation where he needs a push in the right direction. This time he's actually, you know, taking steps to help Garon, guide Garon, make sure that Garon's going to be okay, working through him to do things. We've had a couple instances where, like, you know, the voice is spoken from Garon, but it's very, very rare that the voice does more than just help in an instant. Now it's actually speaking out of him. It's speaking to Pol and to Belgariad from his mind, projecting it out, talking to them, making himself known, or itself known. We don't really know if it's a he or she. So either way, it's much more stepping in, having more of an active role, and it clearly defining itself as its own presence. And hopefully in book 3, we will get the answer to who the voice is, or what the voice is, or whatever the situation is. Hopefully we will get those answers, and we'll be able to see exactly what is going on and who this voice has belonged to and why it is helping Garon. And obviously Pol and Belgariad are not concerned about the voice. They actually though they are surprised, they don't seem like they're like, oh no, we have to make sure that Garon is no longer connected to this voice. So obviously it is not something that they see as harmful or from somebody who is harmful. So we're going to hopefully find some answers to all of those questions about the voice now that we are actually getting more and more in depth with it. And we will go ahead and see where that leads us. Okay, so those are the two main things I thought were really important from these last set of chapters that I really wanted to cover, discuss with you guys, see what you think, hear your thoughts. So please let me know what you thought of the last little bit of Book 2, Queen of Sorcery, down below. I would really, really, really love to hear your feedback and your thoughts and where you are at this point in the story before we go ahead and jump into Book 3 and seeing what's happened with that. Okay, so now let's go ahead and talk about our transition from Book 2 to Book 3. Last time we did compare covers, so let's go ahead and do that again. Obviously, I have an older version. I do know that there's some newer versions or some other countries, you know, have different covers and stuff like that, but we'll go ahead and look at the covers that I have. I do encourage that if you have a different cover than the ones I have, that you could go ahead and let me know down below what is on your cover, and if you feel like it gives you any insights into what you will read for the next book, or you know, if it shows anything between transitions or anything like that, anything that you notice, I would be really interested to hear about what your cover looks like and what you feel like that represents of that book. Okay, so here we go. We've got our two books here, Queen of Sorcery and Magician's Gambit. Okay, let's go ahead and talk about what we learned from this cover. So we did cover a little bit about it, obviously, when we did our previous transition, and we did actually come across many of the things that are on this cover. We do kind of know about this owl now. This owl does seem to be, Polgara turns into an owl. We did find that out where Belgariad turns into a wolf and she's an owl. We do see that. So my guess is that that's probably what this is. Though we don't know 100% sure that that is what that symbolizes. That's what I'm just thinking now that we've read it. Because I know before we weren't totally sure about that owl. But we do have the map in the background, and we did land in Nicaea. That's the biggest thing that we have here is Nicaea's name. Obviously this is... We were probably right that this was some kind of queen or something, and this ended up being Salmrissa, and she's sitting on her snake throne. That now she is a snake on her snake throne, so that's interesting. This was probably Moss, this snake right here, or it could also be her after she's transformed, you never know. And then we also have Polgara, if I could speak, and obviously Belgariad, because that was pretty obvious to us from before. So definitely showed us a lot about the end of it. And Queen of Sorcery, as the title, probably relates to Polgara, as we have thought of, or, well, I don't really feel like Queen of Sorcery would relate to Salmrissa in any way, because even though she was a queen, she had no sorcery. So it is probably safe to say, since we only know of one sorceress, that would be Polgara. So, do you really feel like, I have a question for you on the title at this point. Do you feel that the title of this, it talking about, and probably relating to Polgara, do you think that is an accurate title for this book? Do you think that that title was accurate now that you've read it? Do you feel like that's something that was an accurate representation of what was held in this book? I'd really love to know what you think. We do have a lot of Polgara and in this book, but we had a lot of Polgara obviously in the first one as well. But we definitely do see her, especially at the end there, with her power and her mightiness and the argument that she has with Garon. She definitely is a very important character throughout all of it, of course. But in this one, we definitely see her shining and see more aspects of her than we have before. So, very interesting. That's kind of what we've got from book 2. Already discussed a lot of it beforehand. So let's go ahead and move on to the third book here. Sorry for any of the glare that's kind of bouncing off my light at times, but let's take a close look. Here you go. Alright, so it's called Magician's Gambit. And let me see, we do have, though it is a little bit harder to see, we do have that map in the background. And I don't know if you guys can tell, this says Nicaea down here. So obviously that's where they are now. When I'm looking at it, I don't know if you're going to be able to see this or not. But right here, you see really up close, it says Vale of Eldur, I believe. Well, it says of Eldur. The Eddings is kind of in the way, but it does look like a veil underneath the E there. So that, my guess, is where we're going, is from here to up here. So we're traveling from this portion of the map, at least, north again. It's a little bit harder, like I said, on this particular coloring, the way they did this map. It's much harder to see versus this one, where it was pretty clear because of all the greenery. It's a red cover, so that's interesting. All the background and the map is all red, so we don't really know if that is going to have any meaning. Red can sometimes mean things, and sometimes, you know, it could just be that they want to color it red. I would love to know what you guys think that the red might symbolize, or might be in relationship to. But I don't remember anything specific being red in the story at this point. We've got this big mask, mean looking thing that is imprinted there. That's kind of like the owl was here. It's tough to know what that's going to be. It's kind of like with the owl, we had to read it in order to understand, or at least think that we understand what the imprint is. This one, I don't think it's very clear what that means or what that's in relationship to at this point. So we'll have to see on that one. Okay, let's see what we've got else on here. So we've got this person right here, this guy with this long beard, looking like a little bit of a crazy face. If you can see, he's got like crazy eyes going. That could be a couple different people possibly. My guess, could very well be wrong, would be that that might be Belgariad. I don't know why he's doing crazy arms or anything like that, but I just feel like that's a good guess for that would be Old Wolf being depicted there. Let me know if you feel differently, or anybody else you think might fill this role here. Part of that also, the reason I'm saying that is also partly because of the title being the Magician's Gambit. I mean, though Belgariad is more than just a magician, I feel like that would be related to Belgariad the most. I'm gonna guess that this is Garon yet again. He does look a little bit older in this drawing than he did in previous ones, obviously, but it does seem like likely that that could be Garon. He is obviously one of the main person in all of this, the person that is supposed to be the chosen king of Riven King that's going to be coming back. So, and we already know that based on the clues that the author has given us so far. And then we've got this interesting part about this little boy here that's holding what looks like the orb. It's shining, and it's an orb like structure there. Blue shining, if you can see it very well, I don't know. So I'm guessing that that is the orb, and we did have mention with the dryads that there was a boy traveling with Zeter who had stolen the orb, and Belgariad makes that comment by saying, oh, that's how he did it. So my guess is that this little boy is what is used to be able to steal the orb, and he now has it, and he looks like he's offering it to Garon. Now Garon doesn't look necessarily, well, he does kind of look like he's looking at them. At first it seemed like maybe he wasn't, look like they were maybe two separate things, but it looks like he is offering it to Garon. So, it does seem like we are probably going to encounter the little boy that took the orb. They're going to catch up with the orb at some point. Now as we're discussing, the idea is possibly that this mark could be related to Torak. Not really sure exactly if that's like supposed to be depicting Torak or not. But I am thinking that since this is the orb that they're trying to give to Torak, maybe this has something to do with actual Torak. What do you guys think? I would love to know your thoughts and opinions and ideas and all of the above. Okay, so Very different covers in the fact of the same concept of the layout of the cover, but lots of blues and greens and more vibrancy to this one. This one's a very vibrant red on the pinky portion, the pinkish red. And then we've got this really deep red color that makes things a lot darker, a lot more same colorish. This one's got a lot of brown and green and, you know, the red of the dress, the black. It's got a lot more dimension, a lot more color. This one seems to be much more of the same color in the background. The only thing that's really different is the clothing that they're wearing, and that's the pops of color that we've got. So it's much more of a bland coloring, bland cover, I guess you could say, versus this one. And that's also partly why it's hard to see the map a bit in the background, because everything is just such the same color. Okay. And one last, you know, kind of topic is the title, at least for the cover. So what do you think that Magician's Gambit means? I do think that, well, obviously it's tough to know. We'll have to go ahead and discuss afterward, just like we're discussing here with Queen of Sorcery, if we think that this title is accurate or what it might mean afterward. But I do wonder if it has something to do with the fact that they are visiting Aldur, the Vale of Aldur, and most likely it seems that we're going to be meeting Aldur. So maybe that has something to do with it, or maybe it has something to do with Belgariad. Maybe the last one gave us more information about Pole, and that was why it was Queen of Sorcery, because Pole ended up being a little bit more of the forefront, and some of the relationships, especially with Garon and such, and saving of Garon and all that. Maybe this one will have a little bit more of Belgariad, or Aldur, or something of that nature. That's my guess, is that it has to do with one of those two. What kind of gambit they're going to be making, that we will have to find out. Again, let me know down below what you think of the title, what you think of the cover, what you think is going to be happening in the next one. Would love to hear your thoughts and opinions. Just last little go over of the expectations that I feel like we are set up to have for book 3 are as follows. The meeting of Aldur, which I already have mentioned before, but it does seem like that is how we have ended it in the with Belgariad, making it seem that they are going to be heading to the Vale, and that at the Vale it is likely that we will be meeting or having some kind of interaction with Aldur. I feel like at this point we are so caught up with this voice and having it being a part of Garon, as well as, you know, separating it out, making itself known. I feel like now we're ramping up to kind of being able to find out more answers about this voice and who the owner is of this voice and how it is helping Garon and what the purpose of this voice is. So I think we're going to find out a lot more about that. I think we're going to have some training for Garon actually being able to train with his magic. I don't think that Pole or Belgariad is going to give him much of a choice at this point. I think that that's going to be very, very important, and hopefully Garon will be a little bit more open to training and being a little bit more interested in the magic that he has. We'll find out on that point. So those are the 3 main expectations I think that we have really set up to happen, or to be likely to happen, in book 3. I would love to hear your expectations along with everything else. If you have anything in particular that you think is going to happen that I haven't mentioned, I would love to hear it. And now, last but not least, let me just go over a little bit of the nitty-gritty for us to keep in mind, or for us to just have a little bit of refreshment for when moving forward. First is that Issa the god knows Pole and seems to have a relationship of some kind with her. Like, it seems that he knew her very well, and that they have some kind of understanding between them, or possibly that at some point they, you know, talked regularly, enough that, you know, obviously that he recognizes her, knows her, understands her, and trusts her judgment. So it's very, very interesting that she has that relationship with a god. Obviously, her and Belgariad have that relationship with Aldur, but this is not Aldur. So she knows several, well, she knows at least 2. We don't really know if that she knows several, but it's a possibility that she knows several, and that Belgariad knows several gods. And so they obviously are very high up on the chain of things. the deity. They have relationships with the deities themselves. So we're going to see how that progresses forward, if they do have relationships with other gods, if those relationships will come into play or not. But it's very, very interesting, especially because he took Polgara's side over his, obviously it wasn't truly his love that he had at one point put on the throne, but it is somebody that was supposed to be his priestess. Then we have that they're going to meet they're going to the Vale, and it seems like they're going to meet Aldur. I've already mentioned this a couple times, but I do think that it is an important thing to keep in mind, especially with Garon becoming Belgariad. I think meeting Aldur is going to be a big thing for him to be to accept training and to accept his lot in life and to being a magic user. I think, or at least I'm wondering if that's the reason why Aldur is calling him there. I'm wondering if he understands that Garon's going to need a little push, and that Aldur himself is going to be the only one that can really get him to embrace his magic. But we're going to find out for sure if that's the case, or what exactly is going to happen next. Whew. I guess that's it. So please let me know if you have any comments, questions, concerns, anything at all that you would like to address, anything at all you'd like to say. I would love to have a discussion with you. I'd love it if we can all have a discussion about it together and to learn together, and hopefully you guys can point out some things that I missed. I always like it when you guys do that, and I can have some back and forth with you and think about it in a new way that I haven't before, as always. For the start of book 3, go ahead and read chapters 1 through 5. Of course, there's always the prologue in the front, so read that as well. And that will be pages 1 through 60. Okay, so, like I said, comment down below if that's not the best place for you to, if that is not the best for you to reach me. You are also welcome to contact me through Facebook, which is /fantasyfiction1. You're also welcome to contact me through Twitter, which is @fantasyfiction1. You are more than welcome to join the Discord if you want to go ahead and talk to other Belgariad fans like you. If you want to talk about other fantasy fiction fans like you, go ahead and jump over to the Discord. We would love, love, love to have you. There's several of us already talking over there and discussing things and having a good time. So hopefully you will join us and talk about things together as well. And you can hear what other people have to say about Belgariad, about Dragonlance, about Gideon the Ninth, about fantasy in general, anything and everything, even some things not fantasy related, just what's happening in life. We'd all love to have a discussion with you over there, so you're welcome to join. The link is down below. Also, if you want more content from me, you're welcome to go over to fantasyfictionfanatics.net. That will have book reviews, book suggestions, me discussing other kinds of things for fantasy or books and reading and more generalized content. Also shorter content over there if you'd like to just, read some things. So hopefully you will look over there if you are in need of some more fantasy discussions. I guess I will go ahead and see you guys later. Thanks for joining me as always.